Though it was a bright, hot dawn outside, there were no windows in this part of the castle. Van Richten had to provide his own light in the form of a small lantern, which he gripped with a white-knuckled fist. He paused on the last rough-hewn step at the top of the spiral staircase, caught his breath, and held the lantern as high as his slight stature allowed. Its feeble glow only managed to push back the darkness for a scant few yards, just enough for him to see that the room was apparently empty of threatening occupants. That fact, of course, meant nothing in this place. He glanced back the way he'd come. Cold stone walls curved sharply down into utter blackness, utter silence. The fingertips of his left hand, which had brushed against the walls as he'd gone up, were still numb from the chill, as if the rock itself had sucked the warmth right out of them. With a thin but rueful smile that tugged at only one corner of his mouth, he flexed his stiff hand. Like master, like castle, he thought. And then his smile vanished as he turned into the room. If not the true heart of the place, the chamber was certainly a vital organ. Each high wall was covered with books, hundreds, thousands of them, more than Van Richten had seen in one place in his 50-odd years of scholarly life. The yellow glow of his lantern picked up the sheen from well-oiled leather covers and gilt titles, the occasional flash of a gem, and the dull face of a tome so ancient that no amount of care or restoration could revitalize it. But the outer shell hardly mattered. It was what lay inside that was important. Van Richten breathed in the book's scent and felt his heart begin to race a little. If the monster had a weakness, and they all did in one form or another, perhaps it would be found here. As a man might be judged by the books he reads, so might a clue be revealed in the neat rank of titles that marched up the walls. Van Richten suppressed another smile. Not by any stretch of fancy could he be considered a mere man anymore, though the local people seemed unaware of his true nature. He'd lost his allotted portion of humanity. How long ago? And at what cost in lives and misery and agony of spirit for those hapless souls he touched in that time? But I can't think about that now. Time's too short. Life's too short. He had all the day ahead of him, midsummer day to be sure, the longest of the year, but brief enough now that he saw how much work lay before him, and where to start. He moved quickly, lighting candles in their sconces as he found them. The black shadows grudgingly retreated. Van Richten's brow lifted as he noticed one piece of art in particular. Well, the owner certainly had excellent taste. Over the exquisitely carved mantelpiece hung an enormous portrait of a young woman. She was breathtakingly lovely, painted by an artist with the skill to capture not only her outer beauty, but the lively purity of her inner soul. There was no date on it, no signature to be seen, but the antique costume the woman wore indicated several centuries had passed since the paint had been wet. She was mesmerizing, bewitching, and long dead. Possibly even one of his early victims. If so, her fate had been a grim one, and Van Richten had no wish or time to speculate on it. His purpose now was to see that other young girls were spared from such horrors. In the center of the room was a low and massive table, so highly polished that the multiple flames of the candles reflected from its surface, as if it were a mirror. Smooth and bright, no speck of dust anywhere. A great book and some sheets of paper covered with writing lay on the table. Within easy reach was a pot of ink and some quill pens, all expertly cut to proper point and ready for use. A chair was pulled away from his spot, as though the last occupant had only just walked out and now bothered to push it back into place, as though at any moment he might return. He moved toward the table and gently set his lantern down, using a stack of yellowing paper to keep its metal base from scratching the pristine wood. "You're foolish old humbug, Rudolph," he chided himself. But he had an ingrained respect for workmanship, and the table was a beautiful piece of art, however terrible its owner. Carefully, and not a little nervously, he ran his fingers over the fine leather cover of the book. It had an odd texture to it, odd and repulsive, as if it were made from. He yanked his hands away as he realized the source of the unusual leather. Damn the creature! Damn the thing that was capable of such an obscenity! After a moment's pause to offer a prayer for the soul of the book's victim, he inhaled a great breath, and reached out again and swiftly opened it. The following handwriting was a bit difficult to follow at first. The writer's style of calligraphy had not been in common use for 300 years. No table of contents, but from the dates it looked to be some kind of history. He turned to the first page and read, I, Strahd, Lord of Barovia, well aware certain events of my reign have been desperately misunderstood by those who are better at garbling history than recording it. Hereby set down an exact record of those events, that truth may at last be known. Van Richten caught his breath. By all the good gods, a personal journal?